All right, welcome back. We're on episode 15 of the AI Code Central podcast with me, Kaz, my friend, loose term, of almost 12 years, Charlie. And once again, we bring you a special guest. This is David Bressler, who is the founder of FormulaBot, which is an AI tool that turns plain English into Excel formulas, charts, analysis, etc., which I'm very excited to talk to you about today because in a former life, Charlie and I worked together for a long time. We were in publishing together. He was in like the sales side and I was in operations, which included everything from HR payroll all the way up to like ordering paper and things. And one of the most difficult parts of my job, I had to do payroll for commissioned sales reps. And each sales rep was on a different commission basis. And depending on how much they sold, depended on how much commission they got, and how much they got depended on when the payout was and the bonuses and everything. And it was honestly a nightmare to just keep everything straight so we were all on the same page. And with formulas, if you know formulas, you know them, you're great, you're golden. But if you don't know formulas, you're kind of like, I don't even know like where to start, what I'm doing, anything like that. So you and FormulaBot probably would have saved me a lot of time back in the day. So I'm kind of excited to dig a little bit more into that and kind of where that all came from. So also we're talking to you about the third anniversary of FormulaBot. So it's kind of really timely. So welcome. Thank you for coming to the podcast. And could you just tell us a little bit about you and really what was the catalyst for you creating FormulaBot?
Sure. So David Bressler, founder, only full-time employee. I do have a team of folks that are offshore, but technically not on the payroll. This is the third year, and I also have a 6-year-old and almost exactly a 3-year-old. And so that was actually the time in which I had this idea to build something. And so we're actually coming up on the third year anniversary of ChatGPT, which basically means that I was able to develop an app, an AI based app prior, I like to say BC, before ChatGPT. It's crazy to think of what life was like before that. And so, yeah, I was on paternity leave and I told myself I got 6 weeks to do something special, and obviously doing something special, taking care of my newborn baby. But I was also at the same time, I was making another baby over here with FormulaBot. And the inspiration really came out of the fact that, again, Chat GPT hadn't come out, but it was very much on the cusp of like, hey, people are starting to play around with open AI and the LLMs. And so my entire social media feed was like AI, AI, AI. And I'm like, I feel like all the planets are aligning right now for me to build something cool with AI in these next few weeks. And so my background, my career has always been in data analytics. And
Mhm.
I started just thinking through what are some use cases. And so I was playing around in the open AI playground and I was just curious to see if it knew how to make an Excel formula based upon a set of instructions. And with some prompting, it was able to figure it out. And that's when the idea hit me. And then 3 years later, it was very much we were talking about this at the top of the call, what would happen if it didn't just have a single API call to an LLM? And that's what the product used to be. But over the past 3 years, it's definitely evolved into a lot more than just a Excel formula generator.
So was it more you kind of, it wasn't like, I have this idea, I want to build it, how do I build it? Was it more just exploring Chat GPT and then the idea came as a result of that and seeing what it was capable of doing?
I knew in the back of my mind I wanted to build something. I've worked in corporate and then agency life for 12 plus years at that time, and I've always wanted to run my own company, whether it was an agency, an AI application, software, anything. I just wanted to run my own ship, be the captain of my own ship. I didn't know what that ship was going to look like. And so when I started paternity leave, I told myself, I'm going to dedicate some time to doing something. And
Mm.
that something just so happened to be the time in which AI started to really explode on the scene. And so that came first. And then it just so happened that my domain expertise has always been data analytics and Excel. And the opportunity that I saw was out of the box, these LLMs, especially early on, weren't great at writing Excel formulas, especially because there's so many ways. If you ask 10 people to write an Excel formula, you might get 10 different answers, but you might get 10 different formulas, but it generates
Mm.
the same answer. And so my thinking was, okay, I can use my domain knowledge to fine tune a model, to hone in on the prompting, so that way it's following best practices. And I see that as my competitive advantage. And so that's kind of what kicked off the idea of this Excel formula generator and the things I was doing back then, like fine tuning a model to be really good at Excel formulas. That was great then, but now it's not even applicable because the LLMs have improved so much, especially when it comes to coding, which I would say Excel formulas kind of falls under that umbrella. So what I did then is definitely not what I would do today. And again, kind of going back to what we were saying earlier, my main job is to just build a product that can't be replicated, hopefully not for the foreseeable future within all of the big mainstream consumer LLMs.
I
Gotcha.
noticed on your LinkedIn you had said like this is the third year, this is like the third rewrite, or I don't know if that was the exact language you used, but reiteration of what you had originally created. Is it vastly different? Your first release? Is it like massively different?
Yeah, it's a completely different product. If I were to come out and market the product that I used to have back in the day and do that today, people would be like, I can build this in an hour. And most
Yeah, I can do
people
it
would be
myself.
right. It really was just a single API call. It
Mm.
was, hey, give me this Excel formula. Hey, give me this SQL query. Give me this, like, how do I do this in Google Sheets? It was just a single API. And that's definitely not the case anymore. There's at least 10 different API calls that are happening behind the scenes where different LLMs are interacting with one another in a more agent based orchestration, all kind of working together. And it involves a lot more kind of middleware outside of just the LLMs themselves.
So for our builders audience, how would you recommend that they build something like that? Are you kind of referencing to like smart routing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give them the whole playbook of
Hopefully,
how to build
yeah, like,
a data analytics
without
application. No,
peeling
no,
back the
no.
curtain. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so V1 was, I would say, a novelty where it's just like a single API call. V2, it converted into be more of a data analyst where you can still generate formulas. That's great. And I still have a small fraction of people that visit and pay for the website for that single reason. But it turned into more of a data analyst where instead of asking for a formula, you're asking a business question and you're providing it with the files, whether it's a Google Sheet, Excel file, an integration like Google Analytics or a SQL database, and you're actually giving it the data and asking it a question, still in natural language, but instead of expecting a formula, you're getting an answer. You're uploading the file and saying, asking how many people subscribed in the past 7 days from this market. And as long as your data has that context, it's able to create a chart, generate an insight, conduct any sort of like advanced statistical modeling, basically anything that can be done within like Python or R programming languages, you can
Mhm.
do it here. And so V1, like I said, it's just a single API call. V2, it was a very linear approach of getting these kind of data analyst results. And it's kind of hard to explain compared to what it is now, but it was very much one agent only looking at things linearly of like, okay, user uploaded a file, ask this question, I'm going to generate the results. Whereas now there's multiple agents all working together that are all specialized in their own craft. One is great at data visualization. One is great at data preparation. Another one is really good at writing SQL queries to ping your database. And they're all working together, some behind the scenes, working asynchronously. Sometimes it's kind of a handoff of, hey, I did this. Now I need to pass the information there. And so it's just resulted in faster results and just improved accuracy as well. And just the ability to do certain things that previously it wasn't able to because it was trying to do it just in one response. Whereas now it's able to provide a result and then based upon that result, compound and build an answer based upon what it was able to generate previously. And
I read somewhere.
probably not the best answer, but that's how I can explain it best.
I had read somewhere, or because obviously I do my research. Charlie says I creep, but I like to research, so I know what I'm talking about. But I read somewhere, or it was on a podcast or something you did, where you had said that you would get emails from like users, and they would give you their actual Excel files, and they would say, like, you can't basically handle this, fix it type thing. And then you would talk with them and work through their problem and come up with a solution. Is that something that you've continued to do as you've evolved the product? Like, you keep, because that to me is a great way of making sure that you're getting the right type of customers that you need. Like, you're listening to your customers, right? So is that something that you've continued to do throughout the journey of the last 3 years, like take that on board and really work with them?
Yeah, I would say I would say it's shifted from them reaching out to me to now I reach out to them. And so
Mhm.
just like all the other websites out there, there's, you know, the thumbs up and the thumbs down when you get a good result or a bad one. And I've got dashboards and all that stuff that looks at both quantitative and qualitative engagement that's happening on the website. That one being obviously qualitative, and there's an input of like, hey, what went wrong, and there's also a survey that people can rate 1 to 5. And now my process is me reaching out to those users and asking if I can solve it with them, in which
Mm.
I'll hop on 2 or 3 calls a week just to figure out what's going on. And oftentimes it's, I hate to say it, it's a user error, and not so much a user
Mm.
error, but a lot of it comes down to prompting.
Mm.
And so especially for something that is so, it's either right or wrong, right? Like, there's websites out there that write blog posts, right? Blog posts are all subjective, and it can be good, it can be bad, it can be okay, it can be excellent, whatever. Something like this, data analysis, it's either right or wrong. And so it's a good and bad thing that it's so deterministic, but it's been really helpful to talk to customers, understand how they're asking things, especially for an application that is used globally. It's used over several hundred countries. So I'm talking to people of all different languages. I check to see if they do speak English before hopping on a call with them, because I
Mhm.
don't want to waste their time and my time. But in those cases, I will, go back and forth with them on email trying to figure this stuff out. But those calls have been super helpful. And one, it helps me understand like the range of different customers I have when it comes to their knowledge of data. I would say my customers definitely lean on the side of more elementary when it comes to data analysis, where this application is great. The more technical you are, the better results that you can get, because you can kind of create these guardrails, and the LLMs are better at understanding things where you're more specific, as opposed to just a broad question like, hey, fix this file, whatever it is. So it's helped me kind of understand who the customer is, and then some features that have been developed along the way have also come from those phone calls.
Gotcha. So going back, you've got the MVP. How did you go from zero to thousands of customers?
Yeah, good story. So I was still on paternity leave. First place I went was the Excel subreddit. And I was like, hey, made this Excel formula generator. Again, like, there's no chat GPT. 99% of the population didn't even know that AI was on the cusp of being something of what it is today. And it went as viral as something can in an Excel subreddit form. It got, several hundred upvotes. And then someone had recommended that I share on the Internet is Beautiful, I think it's called,
Ah,
subreddit, where again, I just said like, hey, this is a free tool, check it out. And that went viral. Like, that subreddit is like a breeding ground for influencers. And so
Oh.
what happened was it shot up. It was like the hottest post of the week or whatever it was. Obviously, there I went from zero to several thousand users, and then from there, I mentioned it was like it's like a breeding ground for content. And so I'm sure you see a lot of these TikTok and Instagram influencers who are talking about these cool, innovative products. Sure, sometimes they get paid to do that, but oftentimes they're scouring. I don't know if that's the right word. They're checking out the Internet is Beautiful subreddit for interesting websites and content that they can share for their audience. And so it was this domino effect of went viral on subreddit, and then the next day you had, I mean, there must have been like 20 different tech influencers. I say tech influencers turned AI influencers, because they kind of doubled down on the niche. But a lot of them picked it up and they started sharing it organically on their social feeds. I had one person who, I think his name is like Tech Matt, something like that, on Instagram and TikTok. He had like like 50 something million followers, just an insane amount. He's like number one tech guy out there. He shared it, and within a week, I had probably 50,000 users,
Whoa.
and it was excellent. I was super excited, but at the same time, it was still an MVP, and I hadn't set up any sort of authentication. I hadn't set up any
Uh,
sort of API limits.
oh,
And so it was like the Hunger Games, man. You can go to that
geez, kid.
website, you can ping it 1,000 times. So there were some bad actors who just get, I don't know if it's jealousy or what. There's some bad actors who took advantage of the fact that this guy created an application that was, a viral sensation for a week. And there's always bad actors out there. I don't know if it's jealousy or what, but they gave me a pretty expensive OpenAI bill. That first week, I think I blew through like $5,000 in a couple of weeks. And
Oh,
then I was like, all right, like I need to make a decision, right? I need to either shut this thing down to stop the bleeding because I've got a family to support, or I need to hunker down. And I'm not I wouldn't consider myself a developer. Obviously, AI helps with coding and development, but it wasn't great at coding. There was no cursor in all these applications today are lovable. That didn't exist 3 years ago. And so I kind of had to hunker down and figure out ways to prevent abuse and to figure out ways to monetize, figure out authentication.
Yeah.
So it took me about a month to go from an MVP where it worked, but it was costly when it comes to operating costs, to having a full-fledged application with limits and subscriptions and authentication. So it took about a month. And that first day, I was like, all right, this is it. Like, people are using it actively. I don't know who they are. They're all anonymized. I can just tell that they're using it and using it a lot. So let's see if they actually are willing to pay for it. And the first day, I started getting subscriptions like the first couple minutes. And I was like, all right, this is a
Wow.
thing. And at that time, I had to go back to my full time job. And so for exactly a year to the day, worked a full time job and built a startup on the side. And then I basically said, this is too much. This is too crazy. I reached that kind of divergence of the startup making more money than my full time job and took a risk. And it was one of the best risks I've ever made.
that's I was curious about the Reddit story because I had heard that you had success with Reddit, but with Reddit you can't be appearing to sell your product. So I think what worked for you was the fact that you were like, here, take it. It's free. At that time it wasn't monetized, so that definitely I think helped you, because I've seen and I've heard of a lot of people who think they can just go on and be like, oh, I created this cool thing, but it's minute that there's a paywall there, Reddit will like shut you down. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think they've become more strict on it because of how easy it is to build applications these days. And people see stories like this where they're like, "Oh my god, all I got to do is make us a quick MVP, share it on Reddit, and it'll go viral." And so I think one, the moderators have definitely cracked down on it, and two, part of it is times have changed, right? Like, even
Mm,
if I were to build something today, and even if the moderators allowed it and it was free, and things aren't going to gain the traction that they used to when it comes to AI, just because a lot of the applications have already been built. And at that time, it was more of a novelty. And so if I were to
mm,
share the same thing today, people would be like, okay, like, so what?
yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's because people are, like you said, the timing would, because people weren't familiar with ChatGPT. They didn't know that they would be able to go and build something themselves. And now it's like if every single person who was building something was going into Reddit, people would be like, "No, who cares? Like, so what? I don't care. I
Yeah.
could do it myself." Like, so, like the timing of it was, yeah, was pretty impeccable.
Also, sidebar, pardon me, guys, real quick. How much hate mail did you get after you monetized it? And like
No,
password protection?
not much. I mean, the people that were
Really?
kind of following the story, I mean, I went from like 50 followers to like 3,000 during that time. And so for those that were following me, they understood that I was like bleeding money pretty quickly.
Mhm.
And to the point where, like, on the homepage of the MVP, I had one of those, donate here buttons. And I had the whole story of like, hey, I
Oh
got a
yeah, yeah.
family. I'm not making any money off of this. And so, like, if you were using the free version and then you moved over to the paid one, like, you understood why it became a paid application.
I mean, honestly, I also think like a lot of times what success with companies can come from the story of the founder. So particularly with you, you had at that time a 3-year-old. You just had another baby or were just having another baby. Like now's not the time to be hemorrhaging money. Not that there's
Yeah.
ever a good time, but the fact that people who were following your story knew that you built it in your paternity leave, so knew at least you had a child if they didn't weren't aware of your other child. So that in itself is like enough for people sometimes to just be able to relate in a way and be like, I want to support this guy. Like he's doing the thing and he's got children and his money is just hemorrhaging.
Yeah, I would say yes and no. I mean, at least like in the tech space, which I think about like my X or Twitter circle, like it's AI and tech. And everyone who's on Twitter, like it used to be like, I'm interested in everything. I like sports, I like tech, I like finance. And like my feed used to be like that, right? And
Yeah.
then Elon took over, fine-tuned the algorithm, and now it's just like I can look and see like I still follow sports journalists and athletes, but like I don't see their feed. And so
Mm.
we're so intertwined with our consumption habits of like I'm just going to look and then see engaging content that I'm interested in, which basically suggests that I am really engaged in AI and technology. And but like that circle, they can give two F's about how many kids I have. Like it's usually
Yeah.
just some 20-year-old in Silicon Valley who has no idea about or Charlie who has no idea what life is like with kids and can't relate.
Or mountain bike.
Not that Charlie lives in his mom's basement, but that's, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly what you never paid a bill in their life. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so we have to talk about Microsoft. I'm sorry. You've probably talked about this till you're blue in the face, but let's talk about Microsoft because when you were first starting out, you got a cease and desist from them, correct? About,
Yeah.
was it specifically just based on the name itself, or was it to do with the functionality of what you created?
It was just the name because at that time it was Excel FormulaBot,
Mm,
which like I planned on moving away from that because it pigeonholed me to just being an Excel application. Whereas
yeah.
now you can, most people still upload, I would say like 60% still upload just an Excel file, but it's also
Hmm.
Google Sheets and all the other data connectors, and we continuously try to add more and more. And so the plan was to eventually, I had bought the domain FormulaBot prior to the cease and desist, but I'd be lying if that cease and desist didn't expedite things. They didn't put
Yeah.
like a hard timeline on it, but
Hmm.
they did scare me. And
Yeah.
it's interesting too because it's very especially at that time. Like no one knew that Microsoft was going to embed their own AI tool, Copilot, within their software, whether it's
Mm,
Excel, Word, Outlook. OpenAI and Microsoft didn't have that agreement at that time, and so the writing was kind of on the wall though, because, well, at least I saw the writing on the wall because it was very intentional for them to come after me for just the name, not the product, just the name, because there are a lot of other websites as well as individual brands, personal brands who have piggybacked off of the name Excel. So
right.
like Miss Excel, there's a woman very talented. She's got tens of millions of followers on TikTok and Instagram, and her entire content is educating people on Excel. And her name is Miss Excel. And if you go to Google and you search for, Excel tools, whatever, there's a lot of companies that are Excel, whatever, but they're not AI. And so I think that was the angle. I think that's why it was personal to me because I had an Excel AI tool and they were on
Mm,
the cusp of incorporating their own AI within Excel. And previously, if you did a Google search for like Excel AI, my website was first, especially with the name being Excel Formula Bot, AI Formula Tools. It was first. And so I think part of it might have been just a play for kind of the organic search ranking. I don't know how much of a factor it was, but
mm.
like I was number one for the longest time, given the brand and all that. And then Excel is no longer in the name. And now I'm like, I don't know, like fifth or sixth or something like that, which the top ones are Microsoft Excel and other tools that are in the Excel and AI space.
Did they not come back to you though, and try and have you as an add-on? Did I read that right?
So this was prior to the cease and desist.
Oh, before that. Oh,
This was
okay.
before they reached out to me and
Mm.
they said, "Hey, we can help you develop," because at that time it was just a web app. And they
Mm.
said, "Hey, we can help you develop an add-on where it does the same functionality on the website, and we just build it into an add-on." And I was like, "Great!" Like I wanted to go this direction anyway, more customizable. Again, you're thinking about things. This is at the time in which ChatGPT was coming to life, where I was like, "Great! Like this is something that will be embedded within Excel." Again, this is customization. It's embedded right there, so ease of use compared to having to go to a separate web application like ChatGPT or even FormulaBot. And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And they were on the cusp of moving there, and then I think the departments of the add-on team, which is located in this country, and then the legal team, I think they eventually got together and was like, "Hey, we're talking out of two sides of our mouth here. Here, we're saying we're going to support this guy and build him an extra layer of his application for free." And then the other side is like, "Hey, we need to shut this thing down." So I think eventually they figured that out. So I did have
Yeah.
to hire a developer to bring the add-on to life. But the add-on team did reach back out to me and was like, "Hey, we couldn't build it for you, but we do want us to feature you in like the top trending add-ons or whatever." So it got some good awareness and exposure there. So all in all, like I don't have any hard feelings towards Microsoft.
In terms of customer acquisition and your background in data, what role do you think that has played in customer acquisition? I see some posts about looks like they're SEO related. Our backgrounds in SEO. So, what role has that played in customer acquisition now?
You're saying what role is data analytics had playing it?
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, it comes down to math, right? Like, I'm not VC backed. Probably could have been if I tried a little harder. Not a whole lot of VCs want to invest in a 37-year-old with two kids, and it's just me. I'll be frank. And so, as a bootstrap founder, you have to be good at math to figure out where does it make sense to double down, right? Sure, I run a little bit of paid ads, not too much. It's a positive ROI, but I don't see a positive return for like 8 months. So it comes down to like, okay, like I can invest in this channel. I don't see it for 8 months. Or do I go on a nice vacation with my family? Like I try to every week or month, I kind of go back and forth on how much to invest when it comes to paid. But it's being a bootstrap founder, you have to find organic channels that work. My background is digital analytics specifically, and under digital analytics is SEO. So I do have experience in SEO, doing keyword research and copywriting and technical SEO and all that. And so that's where I've doubled down. It's free. I'm a firm believer that people say SEO is dead, but I think it's more important than ever because it's now a data signal for a larger growing channel of the actual LLMs like ChatGPT,
Hmm.
Perplexity. So I see it more important than ever, but also building out the right content. So like a lot of these companies out there are building content that the Googles of the world are writing themselves with the AI overviews. They're writing
Mm.
information, and a
Yeah.
lot of, I would say probably 90% of non-branded traffic, so people that aren't searching for FormulaBot, I would say over 90% are people coming through the tools page where people are looking for a specific
Ah.
tool, and Google's not making a tool for someone, right? It's all informational, contextual content. And so I get a lot of people that search for, Excel formula generator, PDF to Excel converter, bank statement converter. A lot of these tools that are technically, it is possible to do within the application itself. It's just not the core feature. So that's kind of been my angle. So I'm constantly focused on SEO. And until I increase prices and focus more on enterprise features, I'm probably going to be pretty stagnant when it comes to paid channels. I am testing out some new, I'm actually posting it later on today, which I'm excited about. Some new organic content. It's kind of like a free tool. I'm not going to announce it here. I'll announce it on X, which you'll see soon. But I'm excited for that. But yeah, I really just double down on organic content, and I'm trying to be better about myself, about putting myself out there. People, especially like video engagement, is so much higher than text based across like all
Mm.
the channels, and you're starting to see it a lot. You're starting to see that shift on Twitter or X, but especially LinkedIn. At least my LinkedIn feed has gone from all text based and images to video. So I'm trying to be better about putting myself out there and being more confident in myself when it comes to just being in front of a camera.
It's not my favorite thing. I'm going to be honest with you. It's not. When Charlie first told me, didn't ask me, we're doing a podcast and it's going to be on YouTube. I was like, oh,
It's so dramatic. Like that's
it's
not
just,
what happened.
some people just, it is exactly what happened. With a few curse words thrown into the mix,
No.
probably on my end. But I totally agree with you. I think, especially with like the rise of TikTok, I think that people's attention span is nowhere near what it used to be. And so them to watch a 30-second clip of something, they're going to do that more than I think they're going to read something these days. So if you can put that on, like you said, you notice it on LinkedIn. I've even known, like, even YouTube Shorts now, like everything is tending to go way more visual and with video. So that aspect of it, I fully, like, I totally see what you were saying in regards to that. I'm going to change real quick, sort of a little bit. You touched on this earlier when you were talking about, like, when you first created like ChatGPT, people weren't really familiar with it, and then it kind of came about. So ChatGPT is like free, and people can create formulas on that now. And also Microsoft is obviously has baked in AI into like Excel. So how do you compete with that? Like, what makes FormulaBot unique in that world that people would get? What is it that you can give to people that AI from Microsoft cannot do, or even ChatGPT combination?
Yeah, I mean that question, I used to kind of bullshit my way through it, and I probably gave my app more credit than what it deserved back then. But the product, like I said, has changed a lot, and a lot of it came from this kind of V3 of this multi-agent orchestration. It sounds super fancy, but I don't know any other way to frame it up. And so a big part of it is the data integrations, right? And so ChatGPT and both Excel, you can only analyze Excel. And, in my experience working in a data analytics agency on behalf of the clients, in any given day, I was tapping into a database. I was combining data from Excel with a Google Sheet file. So like that's probably the easiest one to explain. That's the biggest advantage of you can kind of bring all of your data together, remix them. I like to say the word remix because it sounds super cool, but bring all the different data systems and data sources together in a single chat. Write one question, and it's able to understand. Okay, I got to go to Google Sheets for this, and then I got to Excel, and then I got to combine it, create a chart. And so the data integrations is the most clear differentiator versus both Excel, Copilot, as well as ChatGPT. And then the other part of it is the agent part of it, in which it's able to basically execute code like R or Python and take a look at the results and see, like, okay, like I'll give you an example. If I say, show me profit for the Eastern market, okay, Chat GPT, they'll take it at face value of, okay, I've got this file, there's a column called market, and the person said Eastern. So we're going to write code where, show me profit where market is Eastern. Okay. My application, based upon prompting and the fine tuning, will, instead of writing that, because I said Eastern, but the actual file says East. Okay. So out of the box, ChatGPT and Excel will get it wrong.
Right.
Whereas multi-agent, what it'll do is it'll run a query and say, instead of writing Eastern, I'm just going to take a look at the file. I'm going to examine it and see, are they actually, like, is it actually Eastern or is it East? So it'll take a look at it and realize, okay, Eastern, so the user said Eastern, but it's actually East. So even though they said this, I'm going to run the code how I think it's going to be written. And then it'll spit out the right result. That's one example of like being able to take results from itself and then continuously compound and learn based upon the outputs that it generated prior. That's not something you can do inside Excel and ChatGPT. And then I would say the third There's a few things, but I would say the other bigger one is the ability to, and this is mostly for more technical users, is the ability to use Python libraries. They basically install any sort of like R or Python library that is not cooked into the system already. So ChatGPT, especially, there's a preset of libraries that are just, they're kind of the boring libraries where it's just very basic data analysis. But if you want to run like a neural network or a really fancy open source model that you like to use for seasonal forecasting, or a prediction model if you want to predict the likelihood of a user churning. There are basic Python libraries that do that, but there are more open source ones or more that are available to you. And that's something that you can do inside FormulaBot. You can basically install any Python library. If you wanted to, you can install a library to web scrape data or fetch real-time stock market or cryptocurrency information. Basically anything that a programmer can do in a sandbox environment writing R or Python, you can do it there. That's not something that you can do inside Excel and ChatGPT. It's a pretty limited and confined environment that they've built, and rightfully so. Like you don't want, I don't know, right? Yeah, that's probably the third kind of biggest thing. I can continue going on, but I would say those are the three big ones.
Gotcha. As we wrap up here and actually roll into Q4 too, pretty soon. What's next for FormulaBot?
I ask myself that in the shower every day. I would say right now we're kind of running in a few different directions, double downing on security. Not saying that the app is not secure, but making it more secure. That way we can get SOC 2 compliant, because that's a big gap. I mentioned earlier, trying to take it to that next level of increasing prices and getting enterprise level customers on board. The first thing that they look for is, are you SOC 2 compliant? So that's kind of one initiative. Another one is building out more data connectors. Every day we get more and more people that are asking to connect certain data systems. So going in that direction. And then the other one is just thinking through and still talking to customers and seeing, like, is there something more that you want out of an application, especially when it comes to data? Like people that have built an infrastructure, and I'm speaking on behalf of my experience, like if you've built out a data architecture and a whole like process of extracting data, transforming it, loading it into a system, building out these dashboards, it's a big commitment. And so a lot of these companies, especially enterprise, they have spent years developing their data architecture the way that it is, and it does take maintenance. And so like what I'm trying to do, I'm not trying to tap into that market. It's a market where they've spent so much time, it's very hard to get them away from something that they've built. And so I'm really double downing on like the small to medium sized businesses who are kind of in that infancy stage of, they haven't built out this robust system. And so I'm just talking to those customers and seeing what they'd be interested in. And then I think the other part of it is doubling down on qualitative analysis. There's a lot of applications that have been built out that are strictly quantitative. FormulaBot, that is something that was kind of the fourth thing that is different for Excel and ChatGPT. It does have that qualitative aspect of it. And so you can upload a file of customer reviews and say, hey, can you give me the sentiment, positive, negative, neutral, mixed, for these 10,000 records? And again, that's not something that you can do in Excel and ChatGPT, but you can do in FormulaBot. And so it's a great feature, but it's not marketed very well from me. And so it doesn't get as much engagement as what I hope. But I'm trying to build that out a little bit more on both the content side, but also just like the UX as well.
So you're going to be busy then? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, I am.
But that's good. I think it's great that there's, like, you're not stagnant. You're not stuck and being like, well, this is what it's going to do. Like there's always a way that you can improve it. There's always a way that you can integrate more. It's not like, well, this is what you got and this is where it's going to be, and I'm on to my next project now. It's like there's a way to make it better, and not whether it's coming from you that's deciding that, or whether it's users that are reaching out and saying, hey, is this a possible can you do this? Can we do this? Because everything's changing, and like you said, you have to stay competitive. You have to bring something else into the game in order to do that. So if you got to keep building and doing other reiterations, then.
Yeah, it's definitely a blessing and a curse, and it's exponential in the AI space because you do have to keep up. Like I used to think that I had an innovative product, and then I saw what these big VC companies are doing in the same space, and I'm like I admittedly don't have as good of a product, and I don't want to compete on price. I want to deep down have a really good product that I'm proud of. And I would say months ago, like there was times where people would subscribe, and I'm like, I don't know why people are subscribing to this thing. Whereas now I'm like, okay, like I get why people are subscribing to it. It is a good product that, again, as someone who worked in data analytics for over 12 years, this is a tool that I would use. And I like to use that as my competitive advantage of like, what's something that I would want if I was, still working. But yeah, I think I'm trying to do a better job now that I'm more confident in the product. Trying to do a better job at marketing it, because those that use it have great churn. It's less. It's like 7.5%. So those that do use it, they stick around, have a great conversion rate. I just need to get more people on the site.
Well, hopefully between podcasts, and I know you're doing interviews on your LinkedIn, hopefully that will be bringing more people in. So we have to wrap up because we didn't have much time with you, but we're on to our rapid fire round.
Okay.
Just a few questions. They're just silly questions and nothing that's going to be taxing, I promise you. Okay. When you're building or working, what do you like to listen to? TV shows, music, podcasts?
I start the day with music, and then by usually like right after lunchtime, I'll shift over to podcasts, where I have just like a library of like the same podcasts that I listen to. I'd be a crazy person if it was the same episodes. Just listen to the same episodes.
Over and over.
Same podcasts, but they mostly gravitate towards things that I'm not all consumed in throughout the day. So like you probably think that I'm listening to like tech and AI podcasts, but I don't listen to that at all. I listen to a lot of sports podcasts. And so it's kind of like my escape, right? I mentioned earlier, my social media feed, it used to be sports. Now it's just AI and tech. And so my podcast consumption is kind of my escape from that.
Yeah, I have to find too, like sometimes if you're trying to actually work and dig deep into a project, listening to something that you're actually interested in or that you have to pay attention to, sometimes it's not helpful because then you just get completely sidetracked from the task that you're trying to accomplish.
Oh,
so yeah,
it's very much like the meme where the guy and the girl are walking this direction, and then there's an attractive woman
and the other girl.
It's true though. Like my one of my developers will always send me something new that has come out in the AI space. He's like, "We got to do this." I'm like, "Dude, I don't have time for this. Like, stop showing me the shiny new object."
Yeah, squirrel. Like, 100%. What is one non-A app that you can't live without?
Oh, I run everything through Gmail. If that's I'm not big on tech stack. Like again, I think of like the memes of like it's like that distribution or the histogram where you've got the one guy who's like, I use Notion, I send a Notion here, I send like this crazy like analysis paralysis of like too much tech stack. I'm not like that at all. So if I were to choose one app, it's probably like the iOS native notes application, where I just store all of my notes.
Big fan. I'm a big fan. I'm a list person.
Ideas in there.
Yeah. Everything goes in there, and then I use a little listing so I can do. Like big fan of notes. I use it for everything. Yeah, it's a great app. Okay, last one. What's your favorite productivity snack?
Oh man, I was intermittent fasting for a while. I kind of fell off the wagon here these past few weeks, just with this new development coming out. But I'm a big fan of trail mix. Like I like to think it's healthy, but it's really not. Especially the one that I get that has M&Ms in it. So I would say trail mix is probably that one.
Target has the superior trail mixes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I will die on that hill. Target's trail mixes are like.
I usually get the Kirkland one at Costco, but Target has a good one as well.
Yeah,
I'm also a big fruit guy. Like I can crush a vine of grapes in one session. Frozen grapes.
Solid choice. But grapes, if they're in season and they're good, grapes are a top pick. All right. Well, Our time is up. So I would like to say thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you on. We will, of course, tag all of your taggables, LinkedIn and FormulaBot and things in our show notes. So you will be able to, I think Charlie will send you obviously the link so you can put it on your LinkedIn. But I would just, yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate your time and hopefully you'll come back again soon.
For sure. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Have a good time.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.